It's 2025, and we humans
Because you're human, and I was human.
are living on a dying planet.
Look at this run!
400,000 years of modern human evolution, and we still haven't managed to solve world peace, homelessness, or world hunger. But at least we have style, green glass skin, and love. How did we go from a singularity to this? It's time for us to stop living in escapism and remember who we are. Hi, my name is Abbey Drew. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. On this channel, we talk spirituality and science, all in the name of living our best life. Welcome to our villain origin story, part 1, the Big Bang Theory. Past 13.8 billion years ago, nothing existed. A singularity, that is a one-dimensional point, so something with no width, length, depth, expands rapidly in its hot, dense, and high-energy state. Now, I know I do tarot readings and stuff, but I actually have a degree in science.
Since you got your degree, and you know every fucking thing.
And I love this topic. It's one of my favorite topics to talk about. Let's go through the stages of evolution. The first stage of the universe is the Planck epoch. Epoch being a fancy word for era. Now, I want you to really pay attention to the timescale craziness that is happening here. So the Planck epoch is between 0 and 10 to the negative 43 seconds. The universe is a teeny tiny thing about 10 to the negative 35 meters wide. When we say 10 to the negative 35, that means 0 followed by 34 zeros, then a 1. Meters. The universe has a temperature of around 10 to the 32, that's 1 followed by 32 zeros, 10 to the 32 degrees Celsius. We're scientists, we don't use Fahrenheit. Next up is the Grand Unification Epoch. This is between 10 to the negative 43 and 10 to the negative 36 seconds. This is when the earliest elementary particles and antiparticles are created in this kind of quark soup. The inflationary epoch between 10 to the negative 36 and 10 to the negative 32 seconds, we have extremely rapid and exponential expansion. The size of the universe is right now around the size of a grapefruit.
Oh my god, my Shayla!
Can you imagine everything that you see in the night sky, the whole entire Earth, and beyond what you can see, because the universe is further than where obviously our telescopes can see. It's 13.8 billion light years wide, the observable universe at least. Imagine all that squished in to the size of a grapefruit. That's why it's so high energy. The electroweak epoch is 10 to the negative 36 to 10 to the negative 12 seconds after the Big Bang. And this is where W and Z bosons are created. These are just more of our fundamental particles. They interact with the Higgs field, which imparts mass upon the particle. Next up, we have the quark epoch. 10 to the negative 12 to 10 to the negative 6 seconds. So 10 to the negative 6 seconds is a microsecond. So now you can kind of imagine the scale of time we're looking at. This is where quarks, electrons, and neutrinos form. The temperature drops to below 10 quadrillion degrees, so we need our jumpers. And quarks and antiquarks annihilate each other, and only 1 in a billion pairs survives. These surviving quarks will ultimately be the ones that make matter, because quarks form protons and neutrons, etc., which form our atoms. The Hadron epoch, which is 10 to the negative 6, remember that's 1 microsecond, to 1 second after the Big Bang. The universe has cooled to 1 trillion degrees, which allows these quarks to form protons and neutrons. So we're 1 second after the Big Bang, and we now have protons and neutrons. Next up is the lepton epoch. 1 to 3 minutes after the Big Bang, leptons, like electrons and antileptons, dominate the mass of the universe. They annihilate each other and produce photons. Photons are particles of light. I say particles because light is both a particle and a wave. Nucleosynthesis is 3 minutes to 20 minutes after the Big Bang. The universe has cooled to 1 billion degrees, and atomic nuclei can now form. The first simple elements of hydrogen, helium, and a tiny bit of lithium are here. The photon epoch marks the beginning of the radiation-dominated era of the universe. This is 3 minutes to 240,000 years after the Big Bang. Here we have gradual cooling rather than that rapid cooling we had at the start, and the universe is now dominated by photons. electrons, and that's why this is called the radiation era. The universe is filled with a sort of plasma, a hot, opaque sort of soup of nuclei, so that being the protons and the neutrons, and electrons. So it's not like we have sort of distinct like space between matter. It's kind of like it's a big hot soup goo. It's kind of like this big hot gooey soup of nuclei, so protons and neutrons, and electrons floating together. Recombination and decoupling is the next stage of the universe. This is between 240,000 and 300,000 years after the Big Bang. Temperature falls to a balmy 3,000 degrees Celsius, which is roughly the temperature of the surface of the sun, and matter becomes less dense and transparent to light. Photons are decoupled, so that's why it's called the decoupling era. Photons are decoupled from interacting with the protons and the electrons from the hot soup, and they are now free.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
And we can detect these early photons in the cosmic microwave background radiation. 75% of the elements formed are hydrogens, 25% are heliums, and there are tiny traces of lithium as well. So we've only got the light elements because it takes more energy to create heavier elements, and you need to do that by nuclear fusing the lighter elements together to get the heavier elements. But we'll talk about that shortly. The dark era, the dark days.
I can't see, I'm blind.
300,000 years to 150 million years. So you can see these time scales are getting ridiculous. They're going from ridiculously short to ridiculously long. 300,000 to 100 million years after the Big Bang, photons exist, but there are no light sources, i.e. there's no stars. So there's nothing producing light in the universe. So that's why it's called the dark era. The universe has cooled, it's spread out, so it's a lot more low energy, and we're talking about much larger time scales now. Reionization is the next stage, which is between 150 million years to 1 billion years after the Big Bang. The first quasars form from gravitational collapse, so you can imagine that in parts of the universe there is a higher density, like the universe is mostly uniform in how the matter is distributed, but there are going to be places that have a larger density and they're going to collapse under gravity. Quasars are basically a highly active galactic nucleus. It describes the luminous radiation coming from a gaseous disk, accretion disk around a supermassive black hole. These are normally found at the center of galaxies. Their intense radiation reionizes, ionizing meaning make charged. It reionizes the surrounding universe. Next up, we have some exciting stuff. We have galaxy and star formation. So far we've talked up to 1 billion years after the Big Bang. In the next 300 to 500 million years after this point, we've got galaxy and star formation. So gravity starts to be the main player here in the universe as denser parts of the primordial gas begin to collapse. Under the pressure, they are hot enough to undergo nuclear fusion of hydrogen, creating the first stars. These stars are 100 times more massive than our sun, and so therefore they're going to burn out quicker. Stars recycle and produce generations and generations of stars, and as they go through this recycling process, we get heavier and heavier elements produced. Matter gravitates together, creating galaxies, clusters, and superclusters. Also, I want you to imagine that if you sort of like had an explosion of things, that things would have momentum moving, and they would also have some kind of like circular momentum, and as they get sort of pulled in by gravity to other things, and they're spinning and spinning, and that is also helping everything sort of clump together. So this brings us to the solar system formation, so the solar system that we live in. Solar system formation of our solar system began 8.5 to 9 billion years after the Big Bang. Our sun is a late generation star which has formed in the center of a solar nebula cloud. So it's essentially like a cloud of space dust and gas. Angular momentum and gravity begin to form the planets and moons of those planets within our solar system. So of this disk, of the gas and dust disk, our solar system formed. So the Earth is around 4.5 billion years old. Star formation continues to this day, but we will have to save the cold and lonely fate of our universe for another video. Now, before we go into the section about life forming on Earth, I want to make it clear that the Big Bang Theory and the evolution of the universe and how stars were formed in galaxies is well supported with measurement and observation. It's only really the why or what was before or what caused the Big Bang. Like, was it just a random fluctuation in a field, or are we like spawned from a black hole from another universe? Like, there's a few different theories out there, so it's only really that very beginning or before the Big Bang that is sort of unknown. The origin of life on Earth is a lot more complicated and is not yet fully understood. So the Earth is formed 4.5 billion years ago, and things are pretty quiet up until 3.8 billion years ago. So we've got about 0.8 billion years of just land doing land stuff, volcanoes happening, whatnot. But 3.8 billion years ago, the Earth cools and the atmosphere begins to develop. The atmosphere is actually critical for our life here on Earth, so this is a really important moment. The building blocks of life, like proteins, RNA, and amino acids, are created and they flourish in the volcanic, mineral-rich environments. 2.3 billion years ago, we get the first oxygen-breathing cells, and these are really important because they're producing atmospheric gases as well that contribute to the shift in percentages of different molecules we have in our atmosphere. 2 billion years ago, the first cells with a nucleus emerge.
The mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell,
and the presence of oxygen increases in the atmosphere. 1 billion years ago, we finally get multicellular organisms. Win-win. And then another couple 100 million years later, we have the snowball Earth. So this is where the Earth was covered in ice. So you can imagine that sort of slows things down. I just like to, it's not about life. I just like to throw it in to imagine our world looking very, very different to how it looks today. Between 635 and 570 million years ago, complex life emerges. So the first complex life on Earth were flatworms.
Bella, look, it's a worm. It's a worm.
Jellyfish and algae. Earth's atmosphere now has modern oxygen levels. Yay. And later in this period, animals with hard shells begin to appear. Between 470 and 420 million years ago, the first plants,
A dandelion.
beginning with sea plants and then later land plants, emerge. So there were animals like jellyfish, algae, and worms before there was even plant life. 250 million years ago, the dinosaurs appear. And they emerge on Pangaea, which has a hot desert-like climate, and this is where all the continents that we know today are kind of glued together. And this hot desert climate allows these reptiles and other reptilian species to flourish. 200 million years ago, the first mammals appear, and they evolve from a class of reptiles. So mammals were alive whilst dinosaurs were alive. 65 million years ago, the dinosaurs go extinct. And then 600,000 years ago, so this is about 64.4 million years after the dinosaurs go extinct, human ancestors have emerged and are now on the playing field of Earth.
I am human, still. But I was just referring to myself in the past.
And around 400,000 years ago, this is when early humans begin to show signs of being able to control fire and build the very first homes. Modern humans, so Homo sapiens, really begin 40,000 years ago. 7,000 to 9,000 years ago, modern humans first domesticated animals and began agricultural practices. 6,000 years ago, humans made the first cities. 4,500 years ago, the first pyramid was built. 2,500 years ago, democracy was birthed in ancient Greece. 1,500 years ago, we have the fall of the Roman Empire. And 600 years ago, we have the printing press, which is relevant to our media that we have today and our widespread literacy skills. And 250 years ago, we had the Industrial Revolution, which is relevant to our pollution, climate change, and our modern technology. Last century was a doozy. 1920s saw commercial TV and radio begin. Global economy emerges, and after World War II, corporate influence and power skyrockets. 50 years ago, we had the first personal computers, which developed to your iPhones or your laptops that you have today. And we could talk more about recent events that have shaped the culture and ideologies most prominent today, but this video is probably already too long. That can be part 2 of our villain origin story. The point of this video is to help us remember where we came from and admire who we are and how we were created. So, the takeaways from this video One, I hope you've enjoyed the journey of our history through time and space to where we are today. For me, this brings so much perspective to how we live our lives. Whether the Big Bang emerged from a singular fluctuation or the center and the other side of a black hole, one thing is for certain. Everything there is, every person who has ever lived, the plants, the mountains, the rivers, the moon, the stars, and the galaxies far, far away, every photon of light were once one. The luck and the chance it took for the universe to create you from a high density, high energy, fundamental particle soup 13.8 billion years ago is a miracle. You are so special to be alive right now. You are on the same scale as supermassive black holes, giant stars, and beautiful spiral galaxies far, far away. The history of us modern humans takes up about 0.000289% of all time. In this way, our problems are completely inconsequential to the universe. We also have the conscious awareness, though, to reflect on our existence and to study ourselves and the universe we came from. And in this way, we are incredibly important to the universe. Without us, there are no witnesses to the impressive, beautiful evolution and creation of the universe itself. And to be a part of it and to be able to witness it is, I think, a philosophical or spiritual thought in itself. It's like, I am it and I am seeing it. You are within and you are without. On that note, thank you for being here. Subscribe, comment, like if you enjoyed this video, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye!